AI, or artificial intelligence. So this open lecture is held in terms of Nordplus project, as you know. What this open lecture is for? Actually, the main idea, the main aim of open lecture is to bring the knowledge and information from great specialists to Ülemiste city people, for everyone. Minor Ülemiste city and Estonian Entrepreneurship University of Applied Sciences are collaborating and making cooperation to find those amazing talents who are the best specialists in known fields and bring them to connect with others, young talents or major specialists, to find new and give you some great topics that are actually up to date. As we all know, what is the main purpose of Nordplus project? The developers of Ülemiste city consciously are developing businesses and educational networking in this campus. So that's why the Nordplus project was actually initiated. This year, during this year, 3 study tours are planned and already 2 are held. So there will be 1. And the third and last one tour during this year will be, as you know, as already been mentioned, will begin autumn, in October, starting 14 till 16 of October. So everybody who has been already participating in previous tours are warmly welcomed. Who are excited to come here again?
Of course, yeah.
Oh yeah, I love it. Majority. All right, long story short. We have a small change in our schedule today on open lecture. Unfortunately, the Milrem Robotics representative couldn't come here today to present their company according to some personal issues. But we hope to get him here next time and get the information as he was promised us. So to start with, I would love to ask and invite amazing specialist, the National Digital Advisor, Martin Kaivat, who is already here. He is a digital trend visionary. He works in a government office and advises the Prime Minister. He actually knows what he talks about. And to give him a word and represent him for himself, let's get him a hand of applause.
So, hello everybody. It's so great to see so many people interested in AI, and it's on the top of its hype cycle, then probably, yeah, it's one of the I tried to let some of the hot air out of the buzzwords, but also say a few things what Estonia as a government is doing about artificial intelligence, what are our next steps, and so forth. So, as mentioned, I'm National Digital Advisor of Estonia. This means that I support the Estonian government and Prime Minister on matters of information, society and innovation. Basically, that means that I'm the in-house visionary for the Estonian government, and I'm responsible for all sorts of new technologies that perhaps the government does not use yet, or wants to use, and perhaps also the society does not understand. So my job is to make those preliminary frameworks ready so that the government would be ready to actually adapt to those changes, and also that perhaps, hopefully, the society would be also ready to understand what those changes mean. And examples of those might be self-driving cars, but I'm also the initiator of the Estonian AI policy framework. And actually, today, making this presentation is kind of nice because just in the end of May, like on the 28th of May, Estonia launched its own AI strategy also for the next couple of years. Very practical guidebook how to do AI in Estonia. And as I understood, you've all been to this e-Estonia briefing center before, so you've heard a little bit about e-Estonia and digital stuff that we do here in Estonia. Then one of the main points is that, yeah, we've been doing this for 20 years, and we actually have the data that we can teach our machine learning algorithms, for example. So in this way, Estonia as a country is constantly sailing uncharted waters to find out new things, because as we also have discovered throughout the past few years working with AI from the government side, then all governments de facto are actually inventing a bicycle. Everybody, it's a new topic, bureaucrats have not yet understand it, the technologists need to show more examples, and more difficultly the lawyers need to understand what it actually means for the whole ecosystem. So in a way my job is to bring all of those different stakeholders together and try to translate different issues between them. So Estonian AI, one of the main fundamental issues that AI has from a governmental point of view. Looking back from the 20 years of experience in building a digital society in Estonia, then if there's one thing to take home from the Estonian case study, is that technology has got actually very little to do with that stuff. It's mainly about building a mindset and culture toward openness, and looking at, again, from the governmental perspective, it's mainly about changing the bureaucrat's mindset. Because bureaucracy was invented, it dates back to China, to the very old times, but mainly the modern state was invented in after Westphalia Peace Treaty, when the nation states became to raise. And in time of industrialization, well, a lot of change between them. Especially in the past 50 years, a lot has changed. Basically, the interactions that put the society together in the last 10 years have changed quite a lot. We can argue that the thin line between total madness and mainstream has shifted so much, because things that we can do today seemed unimaginable 10-15 years ago. And this time the main problem is that this kind of an exponential growth curve also in terms of innovation and technological change is going also faster and faster. So again, looking from the government side of point of view, I would argue that the government's only job is actually to teach or build the society how to adapt to different changes. These changes might come from technology, AI, for example, or climate, or some other social changes that we see happening. So yeah, basically 2 weeks ago we launched our own AI policy, which actually has a really, really practical value. Estonia currently has 16 live applications of artificial intelligence in the public sector. This is relatively good compared to other countries, because as I mentioned, everybody, including the Estonians, are inventing the bicycle. But if we try to look a bit further away to the topic, then the lessons from Estonia, as I mentioned, mainly are that this is a change of culture and mindset, rather than different gadgetry and perhaps modus operandi, or the way to do business. Then if we look at the global picture today, then we see more or less two dominating governance structures, coming from mainly data governance. We see China, we see basically the 1984 Orwellian world of Big Brother live in the Chinese centralized governmental control information systems. Basically, Big Brother has settled in Beijing, and this seems to be suiting. Looking at from probably the Estonian and the European perspective, this is definitely not okay. But also when we look at the US model, which is a quasi-decentral corporate control model, where big players like Facebook and Google are owning the data and controlling it, I would also argue that this is also not okay. So we see European Union with GDPR, for example, moving towards a more humanistic point of view, but we all know that EU is slow as hell. To change something there takes a lot of time. Then I would argue that Estonia, and as I understand there are many Finnish also in the audience, Estonia and Finland have the best potential to build this human-centric governance model, which basically is based on the value that every citizen is actually the owner and in control of their information. And if we look at data governance architectures, then if Chinese are going for centralized, if US is currently de facto built on quasi-decentral, then Estonia and Finland are built on distributed architecture, which basically means that we don't have the one ring to rule them all, or the big brother. We don't put all our eggs in one basket, we try to spread them around to basically counter potential risks. And what's underlying in these three governance models basically is the ethics of doing business. The idea that, let's put together, push forward the thought to 15 to 20 years on a philosophical note. This means that we are building a governance system where people would actually have a choice. Like if we see AI going to solve lots of different problems, then in 10, 15 years, even 20, what it means is will the Chinese or the US corporates will be controlling your mind. We want to leave an option for the people as well. So this is the overall mission for Estonia and also Finland, because we are doing this together as a partnership. There's lots of different details about how to do that, and they are becoming ever increasingly complex. But I think more and more, all in all, these are the very grounded values that why we are building it in Estonia. We actually want to show the world that this type of a human-centric governance, not necessarily only data governance, can be achieved in a live model, which means that we can show that the economical structure works, the social relationships work, it works in different fields of life, and so on. And as a kind of provocation, I would argue or can say that, okay, I'm a professional dreamer, and bureaucracy usually is slower than expected, but I think we can actually show a model to the world of how this human-centric governance would work in roughly 5 to 6 years. Both Estonia and Finland have the very ground pieces or the fundamental pieces there, and as a competitive advantage, both countries are highly digitalized from the government side. So basically what it means is that the mindset in bureaucracy has already changed. Now we are pushing it even further to be more flexible and more adaptable. So one of the very key questions, if we want to build a human-centric governance model, is actually the legal side of algorithms. Basically, very strange works like auditability, accountability, liability, all of those issues in a one pot. We've had a debate in Estonia about algorithmic agency. Basically, algorithmic agency is a concept, well, it's a very complex concept, but the Estonian discussion has been revolving on whether to give algorithms separate legal entity status or not. Basically, the idea that the current legal system has been based on Roman law, and the Roman law comes with two very fundamental legal entities. There's a person, like I'm a person, I'm a citizen, I have certain rights and obligations, and then there's legal person, just like a company or a school or whatever. Then our suggestion at first was to give algorithms also separate legal entity status, which is a relatively radical option. But as it also works in Estonia, that you want a lot, you get a little, and you want little, you get nothing. So basically, we are currently not working on granting algorithms separate legal entity status, rather than we are basically offer the legal suggestion how to change a whole bunch of laws so that these types of algorithms would be able to make decisions for the end user, so for the citizen. There is actually, in the practical side, like looking at like for the next couple of years, there's quite a lot of different action plans where AI can actually help. Like the main problems that also like Estonia has been tackling, the point that data usually in databases is messy, it's somehow untrustworthy sometimes. AI can help to clean it up, to make it more structured. The question of classificators, if you give a bunch of civil servants or programmers an assignment to start building an ideal classificator, probably they will work on it for the whole of their life. They can never, because it's a very complex thing. But again, AI can start helping there. Estonia's problem usually is about, like, as you're visiting Estonia, it's quite a small country. Everybody knows everybody, and the amount of talent is scarce. So that's one of those issues. But what this artificial intelligence policy, what we see, the main point, or how we can actually implement it and make it worth for the citizen and for the companies, is that more or less for the last 5 years we've had the kind of the slogan-like vision of building an invisible government. The idea that the citizen or a company would never, or at least as little as possible, have to interact with the government. This means that we are actually completely redesigning our whole system architecture, how we provide governmental services. Easy example for that is by next year, when a new Estonian is born, both of the parents will receive an email that congratulations for the boy or the girl, you will receive this much money from the government, this much money from the municipality, and don't worry about kindergarten. The kid has been checked into those kindergartens, and you can put the name to the baby also, but we can also wait for a month and look at the face of the boy or the girl and then decide. Point here is if you're entitled on getting something from the government, you get it automatically, without applying. The current bureaucratic system works that, yeah, something is bad, then you go and you write something and then you get the service. Government already knows that this baby was born. Why do you have to like tell everybody, hey, I got a son or a daughter? So we can actually automate all of those services. And the birth case is the most simple and the only positive one. Most of the cases when people interact with the government usually are negative cases. So from birth till death, if you die, your next of kin gets a message, sorry for that, this is your funeral support. I don't know, if you are in an accident and doctor tells you, cuts your leg away and the doctor tells you are handicapped, then you get the handicap support automatically without applying. But this also will apply to companies. Currently we're testing a project called Taxis 3.0, which basically means that small and medium-sized companies would never have to declare anything again. Like each month a company does VAT tax declaration. That's kind of like stupid if you're this 1-2 man business. Your core business is coding or design, whatever. You don't necessarily need to or want to know anything about accounting. If that is clear, it's okay, that's fine. So we can automate that and make it differently. And artificial intelligence actually is helping quite a lot. It's not necessarily the main ingredient. The main ingredient is actually completely changing the system architecture, but artificial intelligence is really critical from both in the front and the really back end of the problem, meaning understanding intent, what do you actually want to do, but also delivering certain kinds of services like self-driving cars or healthcare services, for example. And what we see is that actually this artificial intelligence has helped, of course, as it's top of the hype cycle, and probably people's imaginations are thriving, but also limited in understanding that what will it mean for the model of life. Then we actually see this completely helping to reimagine our digital society. The idea would be that we are starting to build governmental information systems, a small modular architecture. If there is any tech or coding people here, it's very typical microservices architecture. The idea that domain-driven design can actually help to make information systems and complex information systems actually more manageable and more adaptable. This means that, like a small example that we are trying to pilot together with Finland is that, again, professional dreamer note, so I'm not sure about the end date, but hopefully next 2 to 3 years, Estonian government will never procure anything bigger than 150,000 euros, for example. So all pieces are modular, all pieces will do one thing exactly, and we can also open up the data for all sorts of third-party stakeholders, and in all those questions, the question of ethics and this idea that every citizen is actually the owner of their own information and in control of it is very key and fundamental. There are many big legal and technical hurdles, so I would argue that next 2 years is mission critical in building this type of model. Issues around privacy, data protection and ethics and so forth. All of the questions that are quite obvious. But these are the things that we kind of are working on. In the practical side, there is a lot of things happening. Those 16 live AI applications in Estonian public service, we aim to have those up to, by next year, this time, we hope to have something like 50 live applications. And probably the amount of these practical solutions will grow and grow. From the other side, we aim to open up as much data as possible so that these types of practical applications could be applied. And okay, yeah, don't perhaps necessarily quote me on this, but I'm guessing that we can basically automatize 85% of governmental bureaucracy in 6 years. And that is something that seems worthwhile doing. If we can automatize governmental bureaucracy without becoming a Big Brother, we can actually show that this type of human-centric governance is possible, and basically governments that work in the 21st century are more like platforms rather than classical bureaucratic structures. They are like platforms that actually empower the people and their companies to be creative and to do what they're good at, rather than just punish them and control them. So this is the mission Estonia is on. A very short 20-minute nutshell story. But hopefully you can join in and contribute. You can become e-residents or something. There's lots of different options. And just hold your eyes out for the next couple of years, because a lot of stuff will start to change also from our side. So thank you. And if you have any questions, just let me know.
Yeah. Just touching on the algorithmic agency, you said that it's kind of like a roadblock for that, but doesn't that seem like the natural progression in the tech age?
For me, and for techies, yes. For lawyers, not necessarily.
And I mean, so like, kind of what blocks them from like being accepted of that?
I think it's mainly about what AI is doing is that the current line of thought is linear. It's very, you do this, like that happens, and if-then type of programming mindset is very encoded into legal systems as well, into our culture. What AI is doing is actually changing that the answer does not necessarily need to be linear, but making that mindset mindset change in like the community of lawyers, for example, or community of bureaucrats is relatively difficult. So I'm guessing that with a bunch of examples that are coming, we can all see different magic happen via our phones or whatever, then this mindset is already shifting a bit, but changing the structure of human thinking is very difficult.
Yeah.
Can you give us a few examples of how you're changing the culture?
In Estonia, the main starts in actually showing the society that this helps me. The tax example, like, the whole of my life I spent less than 15 minutes declaring my taxes. Average in Estonia each year is 3 minutes. I did it in 18 seconds. So if I really understand that I don't want to know anything about taxes, I really don't care. I want them to be in order. Yes, I'm willing to pay. I'm not the bad guy. But if I really get this positive experience that this helps me as a person to get my life done, then you get into this potential positive spiral of feedback loops. In Estonia, we've had that in the digital domain for a while. So people tend to be more open towards new stuff because they know they have had the first-hand experience that this makes my life better. So basically it's kind of a drug dealer strategy. You give them a little dose after every once in a while, so they get addicted to the positive feedback loop. So that they understand that I not necessarily need to be against changes, but also that this makes my life better, so I'm more likely to be more open-minded the next time. It's constant balancing, but yeah.
Well, I would like to ask, as you said, like you're going to replace the 80% of bureaucracy coming for 5 years. So how would you train the mind? As you said, it's more like not about the technology, it's about the mindset. So how you change the mindset of bureaucracy not to be a typical bureaucrat and relying on AI?
So I'm guessing that it will start from automating very routine tasks, like obvious digitalization process. But if you can basically relieve people from those tasks that are very routine, and those can be automated, hopefully people have more time to be more creative. It's not as linear as it might sound because it's very difficult actually. Basically, kind of my job is to also talk about these things so that people would be aware of those changes coming. Like if we see this disruptive technology coming, then I think it's very useful to start talking about it immediately so the society would be ready to adapt to that particular technology. For example, self-driving cars. Estonia legalized ride-sharing or hailing pretty much immediately because I think it's really absurd that taxi drivers are protesting in some parts of the world. They will lose their jobs in 10 years anyway because of self-driving cars. So I think it's more reasonable to adapt to those. So it's about constantly introducing new technologies, raising the awareness, and through that letting people's imaginations actually to dream of this new type of society. For example, yesterday there was some kind of a meeting for small local communities in Estonia, and all of those are very anxiously waiting for those self-driving cars, so that these people in the countryside already we want to get that, we want to get that. That was not so 1.5 years ago. There has been actually quite a lot of work about raising awareness and teaching people that what would the changes be like. So there is no clear strategy, it's a constant change of tactical communication.
But what do you think you would face any political barriers to replacing bureaucracy? Because everybody in the government or the political system, they're losing their power to some extent by implementing an AI or e-governance system, of course. So do you think it would be a barrier in order to replace them?
In Estonia, I'm not too afraid of that. In other countries, definitely. Because in Estonia, for example, it has not been a problem of sacking civil servants losing their job. This is a normal thing. It's very okay. In many other countries, it is an issue. Politicians, while we are doing this, then I'm not necessarily implying on, I don't know, making changes in the democratic system in such. But yes, most of those suggestions that if we gather ideas, that the usual suggestion is let's automatize all politicians. Very common. Yes, we can do that at a certain point, but do we need to? That's another question. So I'm not too afraid about those things. Probably there is something there because there is an issue, people losing their power. Hopefully there's Estonia's strategy, like with starting this information society back in the end of 90s, beginning of 2000s, is that if we can move faster enough and make the preliminary frameworks ready before these issues become mainstream, then we're already set in terms of system architecture. So we try to move in uncharted waters because if we make the frameworks work, so we can hack the system already before it becomes an issue or something like that. But I know it's a difficult question.
Actually, I would like just to ask you, said that there is like 16 AI programs which are working for Estonian government.
Yeah.
Could you please emphasize what exactly do they do?
So various use cases from pattern recognition in terms of detecting anomalies in our whole information system in the X-Road. There is example of traffic management to manage congestion. There's an example of, very strange example, but European Union gives us money to mow our grass in the countryside so that the natural state of the ecosystem would stay there. No trees would grow and something like that. So farmers receive money to mow that grass 3 times a year. Checking if they really did that, what they said to do, is very difficult because it's all across the very sparsely populated areas. In order to actually do that, we have basically using satellite photos and image recognition so that we can actually check whether they mowed the grass. They get like messages that, hey, you should do that now. And if they haven't, then the inspector will go there and see, hey, you haven't done that, you won't get the money. First year we say it's roughly about 750,000 euros, and this program cost us about like 50,000 euros. So that's one of those examples. Where there's a lot of places where you can actually allocate human resources to those cases that are actually necessary. Meaning that all of the usual cases are like easily, you can automate it relatively easily, but you can like focus human attention to those cases that actually need it. And I think that is one of the main parts of it. Also, there is an example of unemployment office, actually highly skilled experts when losing a job, going and looking for a new one and finding one and remaining there for half a year. The likelihood for a high skilled expert is roughly 50%. That's pretty low. Like even like if you think you really know what you're doing, likelihood of finding a job and remaining there for 50 minutes is for 6 months. Is quite low, but with AI, basically with profiling on the unemployment and actually showing them jobs based on their previous experience and data, we can actually push that to 74%. So again, that's quite a lot of change, save in money, and examples like it. These are not yet so radical. More radical cases are coming. We're automating judges, for example. For up to 10,000 euros a case, we can automate basically a judge, a robotic judge. For simpler cases, not like very complex criminal cases, like maybe a traffic fine or something like that category rather than a murder, not that one. So, so that one will hopefully next year come alive. The system will go live. So, there's a lot of examples, and the next few years will be really, really active.
All right.
So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Don't go far away. I'm here, man. Thank you very much. Here's Paul. Present.
Thank you. Hopefully it was interesting and some inspiration, and I did not even scratch the surface. Thank you.
See you next time. So, was it informative? Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. So let's move on. And now I would love to invite here a real great talent from Finland. It's Mats Kyra. He's here. He was one of the mentors yesterday in a program for helping students and lecturers to do their presentations on case study. And he is experimentation designer at OP Lab, OP Financial Group's internal accelerator. And he will speak about AI in fintech industries. Let's get a hand of applause.
Once we get these rolling, there we go. All right. So, good afternoon, everybody. As mentioned, my name is Mats Kyra. I come from Finland, where I work at OP Financial Group. Now, OP Financial Group is the largest financial institute in Finland with 4 million customers. And we are actually the biggest bank in Finland. We are a cooperative, so we are actually also the largest cooperative bank in the world, which, while it might sound fancy, is not really a big pool of competition. And Bloomberg rated us as the strongest financial institute in Finland, in Europe, in 2015, and 8 globally. Now, OP Financial Group has been going through a very big time of change recently. I joined the company myself 6 years ago, and I joined what we called the OP Lab unit. So, for the banking industry, what's happening, let's say in the next 5 years, is about 20 to 30% of all of our business will be eaten away by new disruptive players, mainly startups. And OP Lab was established as a unit that will try to disrupt the business from the inside. So the idea is that we attract young talent, entrepreneurs, who will come in a very free-form kind of unit, where they will be funded and let do things that will go against actually what the main business is doing. So the idea is that instead of having these disruptions coming from outside, we would actually preemptively get them from inside. So in this way, we could at least control a little bit, how we are attacked internally or from outside. And naturally, one of the biggest things that has been disrupting technology, including fintech, is AI in the past few years. And because of that, I've also had the opportunity to work on quite a lot of AI-related projects in the past, let's say, 4 years or so. And what I'll do today is I'll sort of briefly go through how AI is affecting fintech. So even though these examples are from Finland, I believe these apply to most of your home countries as well. Financial technology is quite similar everywhere, even though the legal environment can be slightly different. So I'll try to explain how AI is changing how financial institutions operate. And then I'll go through some very practical cases of what my team has built in the past few years. So you'll kind of get the idea of what's happening behind the scenes. But let's start with the small disclaimer. So just like Mr. Kailatz mentioned before, there's a lot of sort of mythology around AI at the moment. Now, I guess you're all familiar with Terminator and Skynet and talking robots in Star Wars. You got C-3PO and R2-D2, all of that. And AI is not quite there yet. We are right now at the point where we are widely overestimating the effects of AI in the short term, and we are also underestimating what it's going to do in the next 10 years or so. But the important thing to know is that, at least for fintech, that's my domain, AI at the moment is not so much talking robots as it is basic machine learning and statistical analysis. It's basically Google Sheets on steroids. And that might sound, selling it a little bit short, but it's not. It's great technology, and it's powering up a lot of the services that we use today. It's just not quite as fancy as we'd like to think. Now, AI in fintech can be roughly divided into 2 categories. We have the back office tasks. So there we have, first of all, profiling of our customers and identifying them. So profiling means that we can look at the different data we have about you and make some conclusions about that. Are you trustworthy? Can we give you a loan? Should we expect you to get into financial trouble in the near future? For identification, what we can do now with machine learning is we can do compound identification. So before you would only use one piece of proof, your card, or maybe two pieces, you have a card and a PIN code. But in the near future, what we want to do is we want to look at things like how you press the keypad on your phone, or actually a very good unique identifier, what's the angle where you usually hold your phone? It's almost like a finger. Most of us do it differently. And what we can do is we can take all of those pieces of data and create a compound identity. So if I know 50% certainly this person typing is you, and he holds this card, and he looks like this, I'm pretty sure it's the guy, even though the value on those individual pieces of proof are quite low. Then we have, of course, fraud detection and automated decision making. So fraud detection similar to identification. So what we can do is we can look at your activities and be able to tell if you are doing something fraudulent or not. For automated decisions, this is something that's happening widely already, is, for example, when we want to make a decision about if we give you a loan or not, or if we even take you as a customer into our bank, we can look at a wide variety of data and create that automatically. Now, the good thing about AI and machine learning powered ways is that we can add data points that we were not using before. Before, we would look at your transaction history, we would look at your credit history. Now we can look at things like where you live, what's the job of your spouse, have you been sick lately? All of these things we can then put together to create new, more reliable ways of knowing if we actually want you as our customer or not. And don't worry, you will get to challenge me on the ethical conundrums later. Then you have the front-end side. So this is, I would say, the more sexier side of what we're doing with AI-based applications. However, I want to remind you that this is where the money is being made at the moment, the back-end applications. This is what all financial institutions are doing at the moment, at least the ones who will still be around for the next 5 years or so. And they are already applying all of these techniques, even though you might not know about it. But then you have the front-end applications. So we have chatbots and voice UI. So the idea that you can tap to a computer instead of using some sort of user interface to use it. And then we, of course, have recommendation engines and wealth management, where we can actually look at your transaction history, things you're doing, and give you smart recommendations on how to use your money. Because as a bank, it's very valuable for us that you're doing well. Because when you do well, we do well. We want you to get rich. And AI is helping us to do this. Now, the problem with the front-end applications, though, is NLP, so natural language processing. The problem is that it's not quite there yet. We look at examples from English-speaking countries, and they are way ahead of us. But the problem for a wide acceptance of these products is that the other languages are not quite so good. Let me give you an example. This is Siri in English. Hopefully our audio works. Let's make double sure.
Hi, this is Siri. I just wanted to say Finnish is a really difficult language.
So that's Siri in English. It's pretty good, right? It's already quite there. Now, let me give you an example of the very same phrase in Finnish. Hopefully not quite as loud.
Hei, Siri täällä. Halusin vain sanoa, että suomi on mahdottoman hankala kieli.
Now, you may not know Finnish, but let me tell you, that is not what Finnish sounds like. This is not a user interface you would feel comfortable using. And I do not know all of your respective countries, but how is the voice in your countries, in your language? How is it in Estonian, for example?
In English.
In English? Yes. Well, there it works. Yeah. You use it in English. Same thing in Finland. But that's the problem. For example, we have people using Amazon Echoes, but it's very strange to use that in your home in English if that is not your first language. And it gets really annoying, for example, when you want to, let's say you want Spotify to play a local song, and you have to try to pronounce it in English, right? It doesn't work that easily. That said, when we go to English, they are about, I'd say, 5 years ahead of the rest of us. I want to show you this clip because this blew my mind. So, check this out. It's very, very quiet.
Hello, Cafe Crab.
Listen.
I come from Jumbo Summit from America. Can I book a table for tomorrow, please?
Yes, at what time would you like to reserve?
At 7 p.m.
Okay, perfect. How many people?
It's for 2 people.
Okay, 2 people tomorrow at 7 p.m. What's your name?
The first name is Anna.
Anna. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Great, that was seamless. All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, Mark.
The voice making the call is Google Duplex. This is actually a production thing already. You can use this in select countries. You can have Google set up restaurant reservations for you. How it actually works is that it tries to do it online first. So if it finds an online form, it will do it there, and then it will call just to check if the reservation went through. However, if it cannot do it online, it will then actually try to do it on the phone. Now you can notice that they're doing a lot of interesting things with voice. They're adding these starters, they're adding these pauses. And actually, if you do this test multiple times, you have Duplex call a restaurant multiple times, it will change gender, it will change accents, it will change everything about the voice, just so people would not get used to Google making these automated calls and stop picking them up. So this is where we are with English speaking, text-to-speech and NLP, which is very impressive. However, for the rest of the languages, not quite there yet. But we should check after them and see this is what we're going to be doing in a few years in our respective countries. Okay, so that's enough of sort of the divides of what type of applications we have inside FinTech. Next, I'll show you a few practical cases. This will get more fun, I promise you. So, I've been working with AI from roughly 2016. And the very first thing I did was Pivo Alfred. So, Pivo is an application in Finland, which it's a mobile wallet. So how it works is you can do payments at stores and to your friends. And I believe you probably have something similar here in Estonia as well. Do you use mobile pay? What's the way to pay here? Oh, you do not? Okay. Okay, so there are some applications. In Finland, it's either mobile pay or Pivo. And now what we wanted to do is we wanted to add some AI into that. So we came up with these, what we call templates. So we would have an algorithm looking for certain signs of activity, patterns of activity, and then you would get a notification. For example, if we notice that you're not going to the barber shop because you're not making payments to a barber, it would tell you that your hair is getting long. You should go get a haircut, man. And then it would recommend a barber nearby. Or for example, if we looked at the pattern that said you have gotten a pet. So suddenly you start going to pet stores, you start going to veterinarians, that means you must have gotten a pet. So we will start recommending pet hotels, we will start recommending pet stores. And finally, we also added a few more controversial ones because we really wanted to make people mad. We added one which would tell you to stop drinking so much. So if we notice that your alcohol consumption is going up, or it differs from your usual, it would tell you to worry about your health. And we launched this before Christmas. And we noticed this thing that we had not really thought about. A lot of people who don't drink at all actually buy a single bottle of wine during Christmas time, or New Year's. So, a lot of people would walk to the store and buy that single bottle of wine, and later that night, Alfred would tell them, "You're an alcoholic. You should get help." And my phone started ringing. My bosses were calling me that there is a PR nightmare about to happen. Please do something. And we very quickly removed this specific feature. Alfred in general was out for 6 months. It was a limited pilot, and we noticed at that point in 2016 that the technology was not quite mature enough yet. So a lot of the things we were looking at were really basic and often wrong. One of the challenges was that we were looking just at your transaction data. And imagine if somebody would read you by just looking at your bank statement. Would that give a fair image of who you are? Not really. So at that point we actually decided to shelve this experiment. However, we actually have something similar brewing up in the near future, so might want to watch out for that. So after Pivo Alfred, we had some experience with conversational UIs. And then 2017 rolled in. And I'm not sure if you remember, but in 2017, everybody wanted to make a chatbot. Everybody was crazy about it. Facebook had just told they're going to launch Facebook M, which is a smart chatbot. There was Google's Allo, which was also something that would live in your phone in all of your chats. And we were thinking, we want to power e-commerce with these chatbots. And we created a generic chatbot that you could connect to any store's back office and then move that store into Facebook. So you could have a conversation with the chatbot on Facebook and buy the products you wanted and have them delivered to your home. And you would actually do even the payments within the Facebook application. You can see here in the picture, this is for Nenäpäivä, which is a famous Finnish charity event every year where they collect money for children's care. And we actually built a chatbot for them as well, so you could do the donations within Facebook Messenger. And fun fact, it was also the first time we worked with facial detection with machine learning. So how it worked is after you made the donation, we would take your profile picture and then we would add this clown nose to your face. And you could then share that to tell everybody that you took part in this charity. Now why I'm mentioning this is because this facial detection will become relevant in a little bit again. So after chatbots, naturally we moved on to voice. We had learned quite a bit about doing these conversational UIs, and now we were thinking, well, basically we can just replace the chat with a voice-based thing. And of course we had the same problem as you mentioned in Estonia, that we had to do these in English, but we were really desperate to be the first in the Finnish market to do something with Alexa. So we launched the first Finnish e-commerce product, and one of the first in the world, to feature payments within the actual spoken application. We made it with Kotipizza, which is the biggest brand of pizza stores in Finland. I believe they are also in Estonia with the No Pizza brand. Now the problem was, there's no way you're going to be able to use your voice to specify what you want on your pizza. Because like I mentioned, NLP is terrible. So if you have to go like, anchovy, tomato, cheese, and then your Alexa goes like, I can't understand you. It's terrible. You don't want to do that. So we had to come up with some way to go around it. And we had this young guy working at the office, still there, who came up with this idea of making it a contest. So you get a raffle. You get random toppings on your pizza every time. It can be anything. And 1 out of 5 will be free. So that's your sort of perk on getting a random pizza. And this is actually what it sounds like. And this is the young gentleman who came up with it. I apologize for the bad video, but this is what it sounds like.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a new competitor in the Kotipizza pizza game. To find out your new favorite pizza and maybe even win one for free, just shout, "Show me the pizza!"
Yeah, a little bit corny. The way it worked, you would actually shout, "Show me the pizza" to your Alexa. And what it did, it just told you that, okay, I got you a pizza. It's, anchovies and pineapple and mushrooms and kebab. And then you get a notification on your phone to accept the payment. And you would pay, and they would deliver it to your home. And we thought this is the most stupid idea ever. We went to Kotipizza, showed it to them, and they went, wow, okay, let's do it. And they actually did a full launch in the country for this thing, just because they wanted to show that they are somehow part of this AI game, which is smart. They want to look like, a forward-thinking company. However, this kind of represents a lot of what people are doing with AI at the moment. They're doing it a little bit more to pose about it, not so much to create really beneficial consumer applications. Okay, so then we move on to 2018, 2019. Now this is where things start to get more serious. This is one of the things we are actually launching this week, is Responsive AI. This is done together with the startup called Responsive AI. What they do is they provide our wealth analysts a tool where they will actually get smart notifications from an AI to tell them to contact their customers and offer them certain products or maybe warn them about some things that is happening with their finances and so. The idea is that it will take some workload off from the employees. So instead of having to manually go and look through all of their clients' data, they will actually just be on standby waiting for AI to flag the things that they should react to. And I believe this is a part of a larger trend where AI will actually become an assistant, not so much to the consumers, but actually the employees of companies. So they will be using AI as a support for the tasks they do already routinely. And this is actually something we are seeing quite a bit in the military, and even the Finnish military is trying to go for this, where you would be able to get information, sort of a passive feedback of information from AI to be better at the job that you are doing. Okay, then the final one. I think this will also be the most controversial one, so I took a little bit more time for this. Let's discuss it a little bit more. So this is again a thing we are launching now publicly, I believe, next week. It's Pivo face payments. This is very much a machine learning powered application. So the idea of Pivo face payments is that now that you walk to a store, you can pay by just showing your face to a camera. So we use your face as a strong biometric identification. We first detect if you are alive, and then we detect if you are a person who has money. So we have actually looked into everything. If you decapitate somebody, you